So last week I put a poll on my channel asking you guys what you wanted to see more of, and most of you actually voted for architects training. So today I'm going to show you something extremely special. What's going on, guys? My name's Tomic and welcome back to the channel. Firstly, if you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. On this channel, we talk about technology and architecture. As a registered architect here in the state of Western Australia, I'm here to show you guys and share with you my passion about architecture and technology. So if that's something that interests you, make sure you smash that subscribe button, because today we are talking about ArchiCAD and how exactly you can design like an architect in a very special environment. Now, before we get into it, I want to let you guys know that the model behind me you see that has been completely modeled in Twinmotion, so you can import any single project over the top of it, is available for download right now in the link below. So if you want to check it out and grab this model for yourself, it's there for you to download right now. Okay, so today I wanted to focus on how we can actually design something in ArchiCAD, but also how we can design it as an architect and through an architect's mind. Now, obviously there's a lot of training that goes on into becoming an architect, and there's a lot more to learn than just how you design something. But I really wanted to showcase you guys how we can take something like this, which is actually a real live environment very close to my house, which is absolutely beautiful, hence why I try to replicate it in Twinmotion and share with you guys so you can create something of your own. But at the same time, I really wanted to be able to showcase the design process and how we go from absolutely nothing, no ideas in our head, to creating something on ArchiCAD that we can take to our clients. So today we're going to start in ArchiCAD 24, opened up a brand new Australian template, completely blank. What I've done is drawn a red square that indicates the floor plate that we can actually work with in this model over here. So if I bring the model into view, you'll see that the Twinmotion model that we're working with is a beach environment. It is absolutely stunning in real life and looks even better than what it does right now on this screen. I've broken down this model into a number of elements that you guys can manipulate as well. So on the right hand side we have our scene. We can remove our mass trees and we can also remove our mass vegetation. Now I'm showing this straight away because with all of those layers on, even my computer struggles and is a little bit slow. However, with those layers turned off, we can see what we're working with. So we're working with a full mountain environment all the way around, surrounded by beautiful tropical water, and we have our main site on the right hand side here. So what I've gone ahead and done is created this sort of driveway coming up the ground from the sand and the natural environment onto somewhat of a protected cliff face. Now in real life this site would be near impossible to design and it would be a very expensive challenge to do. However, that's one of the perks of being an architect, is sometimes these projects land on your desk. So if I go back around to this site and look at this little peninsula, we have a beautiful peninsula that spans into the water, and if I turn my mass vegetation back on, you'll see that it is completely covered in greenery and shrubbery. All the vegetation is turned on and it is a very nice wilderness environment in a very private, secluded beach. So the goal of today is to try and create a single beautiful residence hanging on that single pad that we've created. It's a very small piece of land in comparison to the rest of the site that we've modeled, but it will look phenomenal in this landscape. So I'm thinking, because the land is quite small, we're not going to be able to create anything extravagant or anything gigantic that has 100 million rooms, but that makes it good for us as well. Okay, so I've moved Twinmotion away and now we're back in ArchiCAD, and this red square is that landing pad that I was talking about before. So we have approximately 25 meters by 18 meters to work with, which is roughly, give or take, a random household block in Australia. So theoretically you could probably fit a 4x2 home on this quite comfortably and be able to create something phenomenal. But I'm thinking, because it is a private beach dwelling, we are more so going to be looking on that holiday retreat villa kind of style design. Depending on the hemisphere you're designing in, you may either want to locate all of your living rooms to the north or all of your living rooms to the south. In this instance, we want to locate them all on the north side and have our sleeping in the south side. At the same time, we don't want to be missing out on this spectacular view. So what I'm going to actually try and accomplish with this is to recess the bedrooms as far south as possible without actually losing that northern elevation. In my mind, north is facing this way, so the front of the building is going to be on the left-hand side of this page. Considering that it is an oceanfront design, we're probably going to be sticking with materials like concrete, just so that we don't have to worry about rust or anything in the future. Okay, so the first thing we want to set up is our story levels in this, so we don't have to mess around with it and play with it. So we go into these story settings by pressing Command 7. I'm going to rename my ground floor to mountains, and I'm going to rename my first floor to ground floor. And then I'm going to adjust my height to 7,250 millimeters, because I've already had to play around with it and know that that floor over on Twinmotion is 7,250 above sea level. So I don't want to be messing around having to constantly rotate my head around 90 degrees, but I also don't want to mess with the orientation of the Twinmotion file. So what I'm going to do is go down the bottom and actually change my orientation by 90 degrees and completely flip the design without messing with the actual orientation settings, and we can begin working. So the base of this building is going to be the living spaces, and I usually start by creating just some generic squares to understand size, proportion, and things like that. So if we were to design a living room and a dining room, we'd probably give that living room 7 meters by anywhere from 5 meters to 7 meters again, because we're going for that nice elongated design, in my opinion, on this one. We want another dining room to match it, so another 5 meters by 5 meters is more than sufficient. That is a very giant dining room, and you can easily cut that in half if you're restricted by space. However, in this instance, we're definitely not restricted in any way, shape, or form. We're going to have some sort of parking, so a 6x6 garage is pretty typical to be able to actually facilitate 2 cars in the actual property. And then we want to have at least 1 bedroom, and a master bedroom is anywhere from 4 meters to 5 meters. In this instance, I'm going to pick 4 meters by 4 meters and then start manipulating the shapes, messing around with them like a Tetris game to actually be able to create something phenomenal. Now, just to point it out, this is the first time I'm making this design. I've just finished this textured model on the left for Twinmotion, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So this is just me going from experience and trying to create something that I think will work here and massage it throughout the process to actually create something great. So like I said a minute ago, we want to create our bedroom set back a little bit, and we want to have some sort of alfresco dining as well. So in this instance, I think it would be really nice to have a beautiful wraparound balcony around the whole side of this building that cantilevers over those rocks as far as possible. So I'm envisioning a very low monolithic structure that wraps and curves around, very similar to how that island does itself. However, we're missing a substantial amount of information here, because we've got a garage, we've got a living, we've got a dining, and a bedroom. We have no bathrooms, we have no kitchens, we have nothing of the sorts. So in this instance, I'm actually going to utilize this empty space here, and whatever size I create is going to be my kitchen. So now, just to color coordinate things, I'm going to just change colors around so we know that we're looking at different shapes and different areas of the house. I'm not really picking any colors in particular, I'm just picking colors off a random sort. Now, considering this is a very hypothetical scenario and you'd have to have an endless budget to create it, I think it is reasonable to assume that we can create this balcony that wraps around anywhere from 3 to 6 meters, cantilevering off the side of the cliff. So if I run that 3 meters off the side of the bedroom and then another 3 meters off the side of the front of the building, we can come back to that in a minute and potentially increase that to 6 meters if we need it. But for the time being, 3 meters is quite a nice cantilever. I know that this is the edge of my rock on my slab, so I can continue to move that a little bit further down and utilize that cantilever of the balcony to form back into the rocks if I need to. So right now we have our garage that pulls into the back, our kitchen, our bedroom, our dining, and our living space. So this is our main entertaining space, our beautiful wraparound alfresco. And then what I actually want to utilize on this side of the balcony is more so some private retreat style bathrooms. So instead of creating a very large bathroom, I'm going to create a very long and very wraparound bathroom. So in this instance, the bathroom for me is going to look something like an L shape. I'm thinking that there might be a nice shower over here or even a bathtub, and the rest of the requirements like the walk-in robe and the showers and the taps and all the bits and bobs can be stored around. So that is going to be the fundamental design principles of this 1-bedroom luxury villa that overlooks the water on a fantastic, beautiful site. And we're going to start by creating the exterior profile so we can see if we've actually managed to put that perfectly where we want it on that Twinmotion file. So what I'll do is get the slab tool, make sure it's on the right layer for me. I'm happy with slab, and actually create my slab by holding space and clicking on the fill that I've already started to use. And then I can delete that fill there. What I want to do next is create some walls before I go into the windows and the glass of anything. So I'm going to start with a 200mm concrete panel and just begin by tracing the outside of this house that we've started to create and visualize in our head. I think that this rear carport doesn't have to be a carport in itself, or it doesn't have to be a concealed garage, sorry, it can be some sort of carport. So I'm going to leave that off the plans for the time being. I'm also envisioning some sort of front door patio area next to this carport bedroom. I'm also envisioning some sort of alfresco entry over here next to the garage or carport. So I'm just going to annotate it here for the time being and then continue to move through the process. If we jump into 3D, we're going to see where our house is starting to sit, and what we can actually do is already direct link it to Twinmotion to see if it's lining up with our project. So now I've brought that project back into Twinmotion and it actually isn't aligning with where I wanted it to. And you can see that my vegetation is causing me some trouble. So I'm going to just turn that layer off. Now I think the house is definitely rotated the wrong way, and I've established that starting ground point the wrong way. So I'm going to rotate the whole house about 45 degrees to be able to move it over and cantilever further over this cliff face. Okay, so I've repositioned my house somewhere where it fits a lot better on this actual landing pad, and as you can see we have plenty of room if we wanted to make this house bigger, smaller, add more rooms, go up, do whatever we want, introduce an interior atrium, which is something that I'd actually be thinking about in this project just to really bring that unity in. So we're going to bring it back over to our actual ArchiCAD file and then continue manipulating this ground floor to be able to better utilize the actual space that we have. So to continue making this a phenomenal project, what I'm going to do is actually extend that balcony another 2 meters and also extend it another meter on the side. Like I said before, the garage is here. It's going to be that main carport entrance, which I'm no longer liking the positioning of that. So I'm going to drag it a lot further back to the rear of the site so it isn't as intrusive. I'm also going to introduce a secondary bedroom on this side of the property that can get those beautiful panoramic views of the mountains as well as an ensuite. So to reintroduce the elements of water into this design, what I also want to do is introduce a lap pool that doubles as a pond of the entry feature. So what I'm going to do is extend this lap pool all the way through and then utilize my entry over the top. So my entry is going to form some sort of beautiful cascading effect with stepping stones through the water, and then this is going to transition into a small lap pool. So we're going to be surrounded by nature and water as much as possible by creating that pool and that entry of the water and having it overlooking the entire beautiful beach. What I'm thinking at the same time is it'd be quite nice if we had some sort of bridge that connected this space and the rear space that would create a secondary living quarters or a secondary bedroom / granny flat. So in my head I'm thinking we could do another 6.5 by 6, which is big enough for a bedroom and a bathroom, and then some sort of staircase connecting these two elements over here. So that's something we'll explore a little bit down the track, and it might not be something that we actually eventuate, but we'll continue to play with this design as it continues to evolve and progress with the site and the ideas that come organically as we continue to design. So now the actual shape of the building has changed. So what we'll do is delete our perimeter walls and start redrawing them again. I think that's the quickest and easiest way at this stage, so you don't have to redesign a million times. Now, if north was still up the page, we would definitely still be shading our building with way too much of an awning over the top, and we would be having an issue getting light into this building. So in order to be able to get the light in as much as possible, I think it would be nice to be able to penetrate this section of the slab and the cantilevering awning to be able to get that natural light into this building as much as possible throughout the entire day. But we'll come back to that in a second, and we'll begin working on the internals of this actual space. So again, I'm thinking that the main entry is going to be here. So we're going to be focusing on this area as our kitchen, living, dining, and as these two as our separate spaces for the bedrooms. So if we continue to work on the internals, we'll begin by using some sort of brickwork because we're already using masonry. So we're going to have most of similar trades already on site. We'll go 90mm blockwork internal wall. And for the purposes of this, we're simply just going to draw some shapes to outline the externals of our rooms. So I can envisage this being a glass tunnel or a glass walkway that you can swim under quite elegantly and quite naturally, and also reflecting this area of the garden and the entryway. This probably needs to be some sort of landscaping, some sort of tree growing through the center, and then again incorporating that atrium that I was previously speaking about, but without having the costs of an atrium. So I think I'll designate that as landscaping later on down the track, and it'll continue to be that pond design that we were talking about. So if we take this slab and start to create some sort of stepping stones and some sort of feature on the entry, let's say we have 800 by 2 meter wide stepping stones, and I'm going to delete that to be able to actually create this stepping stone here. The stepping stone for me will be somewhere in the center of this pool, which is 450 millimeters away, and we're going to have about a 100mm gap. So I'm going to quickly and easily space them 900 millimeters apart. So by pushing them across, we have 900 millimeters. I'm going to go one step back so we're not impinging on this landscaping that we're talking about previously, and then I'm just going to extend these last two slabs straight to the house, so the house actually has some sort of entryway, and this will be our door. We'll begin creating our kitchen here in a second, but I also want to create a floating island here for this planter that we're thinking of creating in the future. So we'll create a circular planter, delete that, go back into our 3D and see that it's all changed, remanipulated, and we have a very different environment on our hands already. We're looking at a much larger house, so we'll direct link that back into Twinmotion to see that we haven't gone a little bit overboard and we haven't ruined what we're thinking. Okay, so to be able to make this house fit, we've had to push it quite far back. We've designed that driveway to come up right into that garage, which is working really well. That main entry is going to come into the back side. We're going to see some incredible views as we're walking in, and our balcony is going to be cantilevering straight across. I do feel like it's missing some sort of natural element, some sort of organic form on the right hand side of this building, so it can actually cantilever further across that side. So I'm potentially even thinking that this balcony here will form some sort of wraparound curve shape. So if we were to draw a couple lines and just manipulate these elements before we take it any further and just see what we can come up with. Potentially I'm thinking we might be able to wrap around a nice big curve on the front and have that really come out as much as possible, but that in itself isn't far enough for me. I think it needs to be something more unique, something more along those lines. So what I'm going to do is utilize that shape and add to the slab itself. Okay, so now that slab is a much more organic shape. It's wrapping around the side, and if we link it back into Twinmotion, we're going to see that shape again piercing through those rocks, coming across it and extending past the building and the actual rock line itself. So we're not cantilevering an absurd amount here at all. We're only cantilevering maybe about 3-4 meters there and a very tiny amount here, but we are on a very uneven, unnatural rock surface, so all of that would have to be cleared and brought back onto the actual building structure when it was completed. So in my head, I'm thinking this would have a flat concrete roof that replicates the bottom side of that decking or the balcony, whatever we're going to call it, and bringing it across, we're having that Tony Stark-like looking building floating majestically across the front of the hill. And all of this structure in itself is not correct, it's not modeled correctly. None of these layers are correct, but we're not really talking about that in this video. We're more talking about design and design inspiration. So from here, like I was talking about, we want to get some natural light coming in, but we want to follow this shape here. I think putting a circle in or anything natural and organic would just look silly. So what I'm going to do is actually replicate this line once again to be able to bring it inside the building and actually cut away some of the natural elements that we've created already. And there we go, we have a nice big triangle that is going to let an abundance of light right into this building throughout the day, which is exactly what we're looking for. So to facilitate the rest of the house, I'm going to quickly draw this slab over the entirety of the house, and then we're going to create the rest of the roof design later on. But for the time being, it's just a very simple flat roof that sits over the top of the entire house. It will be significantly thicker than that. That's 250. It'll probably be about 350, if not more. And now we're starting to see our structure come into shape. What we're also going to do with the bottom slab is recreate that to 350 mil to give it symmetry more so than anything else. And we're going to start changing some materials around. So this will be concrete. The actual roof itself will be concrete as well. Now I believe most of this area is going to be glass as much as possible. So we're going to actually utilize this as a panoramic window by simply using some of the window tools in ArchiCAD. Okay, so now we have our windows in place for that main living space, and all of this section is completely exposed to the sun. So we're going to be able to extend that roof over the top and actually give it some sort of protection. In Australia, you probably only need about 600 to 900 mil of an overhang, depending on where you are, to be able to actually get that natural sunlight in. So anything over that is an overkill. In this instance, I'm going to go 600 mil just to give it a small little overhang. And then at the same time, I'm going to wrap around this side of the architectural slab at the bottom, not for anything more so than symmetry in this design. So as we see it, if we link back into Twinmotion, the wraparound of that slab is purely an aesthetic feature that is there to complement the top of that concrete wall. So as you can see, this building is starting to look fantastic. There is no way we'll cantilever that roof that far, so we may actually have to introduce some sort of column structure, right? So we'll go back into ArchiCAD and we'll just introduce a small column member over on this side to be able to actually get some realism into this project. So a simple round column will be more than enough in this instance to be able to facilitate most of that structure there. The engineers will probably disagree with me, but we can make that work later down the track. So now we have a phenomenal structure sitting over the side of a cliff, which doesn't really interact with this side of the beach at all, and it's quite a big walk to get down to the beach. So I'd definitely be introducing some sort of steps or some sort of natural landscaping coming down here to be actually able to enter into the water. That's probably something we can do in Twinmotion because it's already generated all of these rocks and all of these shrubs are individual, so we have the ability to remove, edit and adjust accordingly. Now going back into ArchiCAD, we can continue developing the interior of our property. So we know that this is going to be a bedroom, we don't need that. We know that that's going to be part of the bedroom. That's the kitchen, that's the living, that's the dining, and that is the hallway we have here. The hallway gives us 600 mil wide, which is nowhere near enough. So we'll extend that another 600 millimeters and connect these two elements to be able to actually walk in that space and recenter that landscaping strip. So we already know where all of our spaces are going. We know what we're doing internally, so we can get rid of those elements there and we can continue working on the rest of the design. Now, I don't want this video to go forever and I don't want it to absolutely bore you, so we're just going to continue with the actual overall exterior design of this building, and we're going to focus on the master bedroom next. Now, the master bedroom is also going to have some sort of window at the front that takes up the entirety of that wall, but also keeping in mind that we do have a bathroom connecting next to it, so we are going to bring that window across as much as possible, but at the same time we're going to introduce a much smaller skinnier picture frame window on this side, which will act as that bathroom window with the $1 million views outside. If anything, you might even create a corner window wrapping around. But if we look back at our 3D model, there isn't too much looking out of this corner. So if I was to fly into this space, we would notice that the majority of the view is directly out this way, and anything to the left is rocks, boulders, and natural vegetation. So we want to aim most of our views and most of our focus over here. So that will be the main master bedroom. We could introduce some additional walls in here. So for example, that could become the master bathroom, that could become the robe, and then we could facilitate all of the services in there and keep the master. We could then also reintroduce a wall at the rear here and return that wall lower so that the front door to that actual bedroom was along the side, hidden away, and not directly from the main living space. Similar to this one, it's in a hallway, so it is not a big deal. We can facilitate that and hide that completely. And this one, we will do something with the kitchen design. It could form part of the scullery or some sort of entry feature, portico, nook, but we can discuss that element a little bit later down the track. Now, as we continue to work our way around, this glass tunnel will be pivotal in the grand entry and the overall statement that you make with this house, even though it's probably grand enough as it is on its own. So going back into our 3D, we see we're elaborating those glass walls on the external. We have this beautiful picture frame glass window facilitating from one side to the other, and which will be our pool and our pond underneath, wrapping through the house, touching it all the way and coming back into the side of the house. So to facilitate that pool and that design, we're actually going to start by using the same concrete panel and unlinking it from the next level. So we're not going to link it. We're going to make that 1.8 deep. We're going to make that 1.8 below natural ground level. And then we're just going to start drawing in the pool as we see fit. So in my belief, the pool will sit directly under the house, and we'll continue to draw it all the way around and wrap it back to this side. So if this was the pool, it is way too high up again. So we will just lower the pool so it sits at natural ground level, and we will then create a slab that connects the two. So that'll be our lap pool now. It'll also form part of our actual entry and its statement itself. So these stepping stones will go through the pool. This section of the pool will only be a couple 100 millimeters deep, and then it will rapidly drop down just underneath that tree and underneath the house to 4 meters deep or 2 meters deep, whatever we decide to make the pool, and making sure we leave enough clearance under that house so the water is never touching it and it is a literal bridge over the top. So going back into our ground floor plan, what I'm going to do is select our fresco and start boxing out the actual building itself so we have some sort of floor in the property. And then I'm also going to facilitate that pool that we were speaking about and model it as just random water or anything that I can really find. So now we're walking over that water in that infinity pool, stepping over it. There's going to be a beautiful tree here overlooking the landscaping, hiding that, creating some sort of natural privacy to the rear of this little dip pool on this side here, which will reconnect into the actual living room by facilitating some sort of windows in this bedroom and in this bedroom, and then also throughout the living and the entry to be able to actually reconnect that interior to exterior design. This carport, I'm not entirely sure if we'd want to make it completely weatherproof. Would we want to make it an open carport to be able to facilitate those beautiful summer days? And it could be something like a natural landscaped carport. So in my head, I'm thinking it could be a 4-column post structure that would then just have rafters over the top, and it would be quite minimalistic and modern and tie back into the whole design of the house. So we could also then bring these rafters all the way across and create some sort of covered walkway for the house, but we're probably getting ahead of ourselves at this very minute. So what I'm thinking for the carport is something along these lines with just a timber structure over the top, facilitating that entire building there, and then we could potentially wrap that side round to protect it from the mountains and to protect it from the weather. So by simply recreating our columns, we can wrap around that side. Personally, I don't like that, which is one of the fun bits about actually being able to design before you can construct. You can quickly go back in and you can remove everything that you've just done and go back to the original to be able to see what was better, what worked nicer. So in my personal opinion, I think that is a much better, much cleaner design versus what we had originally. So I'm gonna actually keep this as the predominant structure for the carport at the time being. I definitely see it as a wood structure more so than anything. So it would be something along these lines with the actual timber wrapping around. I'm not sure if there'd be some sort of feature wrap around corner at the end, but that would be more detail if the client was happy with the overall design of the house. So then the house would continue to evolve and we would continue to design and make sure every element fits. However, the overall design, the overall concept would be something along these lines. If we bring it back into Twinmotion, we'll be able to see where we've come to. So we see that we have this beautiful house cantilevering over the cliffside. We have the driveway wrapping from the beach, moving all the way up to the top where we have our carport and we'll park our cars. So if we just randomly drop a car in here for the purposes of argument, we know it's going to be a very nice Range Rover looking car. So we'll position that in our carport and bring it over to the side. And we also know that this would be our pool. So because it's already a sculpted form, we can continue to decrease this and showcase our water. Then the house would continue to have some sort of landscaping like we discussed. It'd be a small but beautiful tree here in the middle. It would probably be something that could survive in the harsh climate of Australia, especially right next to the ocean, but it would also be something protected. It'd have to be something relatively small. I think that's definitely too big, so we're definitely going to be looking for a tiny little tree. It would probably be something like a frangipani in this instance, but I don't think Twinmotion has a frangipani. So I'll create this tropical tree here for the purposes of the design. And now you'd see we'd have this grand entry coming up with a footpath at the back for the perfect viewing platform. You'd see the edge of the house cantilevering across, and if you were to wrap around, you'd see the actual beautiful home completely hanging over the cliff, and would also indicate some sort of steps along this side of the rock face or the cliff face to be able to get into the water as we see fit. But overall, that would be the design principles we'd go through, guys. We'd establish our zones internally, we'd understand the landscape, we'd understand the site as best as possible, we'd understand the orientation of the facility and the site, and then work around those elements. There'd obviously be some sort of brief to it as well, which means they'd want 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, whatever. In this instance, we're literally just throwing something on paper, whatever we're thinking of, and we're just mixing and matching however we can to be able to create something in a space where it was absolutely nothing before. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial of a very muddled brain exercise to be able to really showcase how an architect's brain works and how we piece together puzzles and solve things like in a Tetris game to be able to facilitate the best building we can. I'll probably end up developing this model a little bit further and posting it on my Instagram, so if you do want to follow there to see what this actually does progress and become, be sure to follow me. There's a link down in the description below. Anyway, that's all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below, and as always, I will see you next Monday.